This Is Your Life, and this a building site in Bloomsbury in London. Now, these three lads, all expert scaffolders, are from Yorkshire, and one of their scaffolding pals has become world famous, and he's expected here any second now for some publicity photographs with his wife. Now, he thinks you three lads are still up in Yorkshire, and he has no idea, certainly, that I've joined the team. So when he gets here, I better get down to pavement level now. I'm expecting you to stop him in his tracks for me, and you fellas know better than I do that he takes a bit of stopping, so fingers crossed.
What's up with it? Go on!
Richard, I bet you're surprised to see some of your pals up there. Another surprise because Richard Dunn, British and European heavyweight champ, fighting Muhammed Ali next month. Tonight, This Is Your Life.
You're kidding.
Thank you, Janet, George and Mrs. Biddles. We got all sorts of cars for you, your mates, your family.
And what do you know?
That's the first time you've been breathless for a long time.
This is impossible.
We got all the cards for everyone. Back at the studio, it's round 2. Well, let me say thanks to everyone who helped there. George Biddles, your manager, and of course my 3 workmates up there, Jim Doherty, Peter Collins and David Marshall. What a time we had, so that I can tell the remarkable story of a fighter who almost gave up boxing, but who next month will be watched by 400 million people when he fights for the world title in Munich. Richard, you won the right to challenge Muhammad Ali just a couple of weeks ago at London's Albert Hall when you took on Bernd August from Germany for the European title.
And August hardly knows where he is, but he's come back jolting. Dunn's looking for him now, and he's got him, and it's over. Round 3, Dunn has won, and Dunn goes forward to meet Muhammad Ali. And there's £100,000.
A victory in 3 rounds. And where does Richard Dunn celebrate his victories? If you look at that screen, Richard, we're taking you there now.
Hello, Richard. That's right, Eamonn. This is where Richard celebrates on site. This is where he works as a scaffolder at Odsall Sports Centre at Bradford. Come on in the cabin and we'll show you how we celebrate.
Yes, boss of the scaffolders you works for, and good pal, John Gibson.
And this is how we celebrated here in the canteen hut. Get your pots ready, lads. Get plenty of this down here. Come on. Right, this time, mate. Well, Richard, as you can see, we're celebrating again here because we're all your mates, and you came here as a trainee scaffolder about 12 months ago. Well, today, you're the European heavyweight champion, and we'd like you to know that we're all your mates and that we want you to do well against Ali in Munich. Give him a big cheer, lads.
But he wasn't going to miss celebrating with you tonight in London. He's here, John Gibson. And there are some other Yorkshire folk close to you who'll be cheering you on that night. And I mean, of course, your mother, Veronica, and your father, Walter. Your sisters, Pat and Helen. Twins, Kathleen and Michael. Your brother, Paul. Sisters Mary and Maria. Twins again, Vic, Veronica and Walter. And bringing the total of your brothers and sisters to 10, someone who can't be here, as you know, because he's in hospital with a back injury after a rugby match, your brother, Paratrooper Lance Corporal Philip Dunn, who telephones his best wishes from his hospital bed in Aldershot.
Hiya, Dick. Sorry I can't be there on your big night, but I'm in a position I hope you'll have Ali in next month, flat on my back. But don't worry, the doctor told me I'll be back on my feet very soon. And I hope to see you before your trip to Munich. But if I don't manage to see you, mate, give Muhammed Ali a present from the parachute regiment. Bags of aggro. Give my love to Mum and Dad and the rest of the family. I hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Philip Dunn. Well, Richard Dunn, this is your life. You were born on January the 19th, 1945 and brought up in Meanwood Street, Leeds. But let's straight away cross the Atlantic to Washington, D.C., and a man who seems to be so modest and shy that he's hiding his face.
Surprise!
Muhammed Ali, of course.
Hello, Richard. This is your life. And where is your wife? Why do I ask about your wife? I read in the London Times the other day, my friend Jarvis Starr sent me an article talking about your wife. I see she's a fight expert now. She says that I had trouble with Carl Miltonberger, and he was a southpaw, and I'm going to have trouble with you because you're a southpaw. I don't care if it's a north paw, a south paw, east paw, or west paw. It ain't going to matter what paw I get on you, because whatever paw lands on you is going to do you real good, because I understand you beat a German to get my championship, or to get a shot at my championship, Bernd August. Let me tell you something. You are not too famous in Germany now, fella. I understand the Germans don't like you. So I'm going to be the favorite in Germany. And I understand you have a large family between you and your wife and her side. You all could fill the whole stadium yourselves if you bought a ticket. So I know we're going to have a nice, successful show. I understand that your wife goes to fights all the time, so I hope she comes to this one. And I want to say this, you or her do not have to worry, because I'm not going to burst your nose, you know, like they do in them football games you've been in, where they burst your nose. I'm not going to do that bad, because I want you to stay. You're not too pretty, but you will pass. So I'll see you in Munich, May 25th. You understand? I'm going to go now, but I want you to show up, because you're running your mouth, doing all of this talk about what you're going to do. I'm going to stop you and show you that I'm the champ and you are the tramp.
Thank you, Muhammad Ali. That doesn't worry you, eh?
Not really, no.
Well, now, here's a picture of the fighter who's going to step into the ring with the world heavyweight champion next month. That was with some of your brothers and sisters just before you became a pupil at Christ the King Primary School, Bramley, Leeds. Your family moves to Halifax, where you go to Osler Secondary Modern School, and Veronica. Now, even then, he was showing signs of being in the heavyweight class.
Well, he was, yes, Amos. He was always a hungry boy. And an ordinary dinner plate was no good to Richard at all. So I had to use a Willa pattern dinner plate, a dinner dish. You know, meat, what we held meat on. That was all we had, and as you know, he's a big boy.
Well, he's growed well, as they say. You leave school, Richard, after that dinner plate and go to work for the Yorkshire Electricity Board as an assistant linesman. You worked there for 7 years and become special pals with someone with whom one summer's day, 10 years ago, you go on a trip to Blackpool. As you stroll down the Golden Mile, just for a laugh, the two of you decide to have your fortunes told. You go in...
And I remember those words to this day with absolute amazement.
That same pal and workmate, now a businessman in Halifax, Malcolm Carter. Wow, Malcolm, what was this amazing prediction?
Well, unknown to Richard, when he was having his fortune told, I was hid behind the curtain. And
The gypsy asked him to make one wish, and his wish was that he would fight Cassius Clay one day.
He was only an amateur then, wasn't he?
Yeah, he hadn't been boxing long then.
So what did the fortune teller say?
She said that he would definitely fight Cassius Clay one day.
But did she make any attempt to predict the result?
She made a definite result. She said that he would one day become the world champion. And I hope that you knock it.
Cheers, Mal.
Thank you, Malcolm Carter. But in those teenage days, Richard, you also played the tough northern game of rugby league that Muhammed Ali was talking about. You caught the interest of a number of top professional clubs when you played loose forward for the amateur side, Halifax St Mary's. But a match played on Saturday, January the 14th, 1967, was a pointer to the future.
It was the longest fight Richard ever had. It didn't go on for 15 rounds, it went on for half a mile.
That's the teammate who was pictured with you there, Barry Bottomley, and with him two more teammates from 12 years ago, his brother Raymond Bottomley and Leslie Stedman.
How you doing?
Well, now, Barry, you better explain this unusual fight.
Well, we're playing Hull in a cup match, and we're losing 22-0. We turned around, got 11 points. The game got tough. I went into a tattle. Somebody clobbered me. Dick come running in, laid a couple out. Everybody converged in. Referee had to blow the game up, it were abandoned. But the thing was, with half a mile to go down the road to get changed. And the fight, we're fighting, spectators, everybody, half a mile down the road, you know, it was just, oh, terrible.
I wish I'd seen that one, but Les, later you, Raymond and Barry joined Richard in another venture.
Yes, Eamonn. Richard introduced us to join the Territorial Army, and it was so exciting.
This was the parachute regiment?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he wanted to jump out of the airplane. So excited to do this, yeah.
But there was one time, wasn't there, when Richard was a few stones heavier than he is now, Raymond?
That's right, Eamonn. We were jumping on an exercise near Catterick, and being a big fella and carrying all that equipment, he was a bit broader than what he is now, and he couldn't get through the door. Anyway, as the plane had finished dropping us over the dropping zone, the plane banked, and out like a cork from a bottle drops Richard here. And when he eventually turned up after trudging 10 miles, he was a lot less heavier than what he was then.
Thank you, Raymond, and Barry Bottomley and Leslie Stedman. Thanks, Chris. But in fact, Richard, you become an expert parachutist with nearly 70 jumps to your credit, and whenever you have time free from rigorous training, you take off with your Territorial Army pals. And if you look at that screen, Richard, they greet you now from exactly where you'd expect them to be, 2,200 feet over Yorkshire. And for a special word, let's hear from Captain Bill Bell.
Hello, Richard. Hello, Eamonn. This is a little gathering of 4 para, showing their appreciation for the help you gave them in running their battalion boxing team. We're going to do a jump for Dunn and not for joy. Action, stations!
And Bill Bell talks to you now during that actual parachute drop.
Well, Richard, we were interrupted a few minutes ago. I've now exited and the parachute's flying. So I'd like to put it down now, Richard. Somewhere over South Yorkshire, how much I appreciated your help when you came up and helped teach 4 Paras boxing team the wrinkles that you as a professional knew. We started off with novices, and in the first few months we were runner-up in the brigade championship. We went on 2 months later to take the TNAVR championships, and we did that for 6 successive years, all due to your help, Richard. So I hope when you turn in to meet Muhammed Ali in Munich, that you do one for the boys, the red maroon machine, and that you hit him as hard as I'm about to hit this deck. All the best from the Maroon Machine Richard.
But they're all dropping in here tonight, Richard. Captain Bill Dale, George Phipps, Bernard Jones, Howard Utley, Bill Whitehead, and your very first parachute instructor and great pal, Sergeant John Fargen. Well, you didn't expect to have them dropping in, did you?
I didn't, no, not I thought they were all busy back home.
Well, now, when you joined the Territorial Army in 1964, you won the Recruit of the Year award, and this picture appeared in the Halifax Courier. Now, Barry Bottomley, as well as playing rugby in those days, of course, you were a member of a boxing club in Halifax, and the man who ran that club saw that newspaper photograph, didn't he?
Yes, Eamonn. Bob Ennis, who died a couple of years ago, and he asked me if I'd get Richard down. He knew I knew Richard as a potential heavyweight.
Well, Richard, joining the Star Boxing Club in Halifax was the turning point in your life. For it's there you meet a man who's to become not only your boxing trainer, but also your father-in-law. Yes, Janet's father, of course, Jim Devaney. And Jimmy, at that club, you were able to provide Richard with a couple of first-class sparring partners, weren't you?
That's right, Eamonn. They were a welterweight and a featherweight. They made him nip round a little bit, but he got a bit too sharp at the end of it all, you know.
Well, there you are, in fact, with those two sparring partners. They are, of course, Jimmy's two sons, now your brothers-in-law, and both professional boxers themselves, Lawrence and Jimmy Devaney. Now, Lawrence and Jimmy, you introduced Richard to someone who used to be a sparring partner of yours.
Yes, well, in actual fact, the sparring partner was our Janet.
Janet here was the sparring partner, wasn't she?
She's done a little bit with Janet. And shortly after Richard started boxing, we thought, well, he could do an extra sparring partner, you know, so we brought him to our house and showed him Janet, you know. Well, shortly after that, we got married, you know.
Well, in fact, you were married in St. John the Baptist Church, Buttershaw, Bradford, on September the 24th, 1966. Now, Jimmy, by then, Richard, of course, was well established as an amateur champion.
Yes, Eamonn, he did very well. He got to the quarter-finals in the first year. He got 3 times in the ABA semi-finals at Bellevue.
And in 1969?
1969, he went pro. And
you've trained him ever since?
Yes, I've been fortunate, you know, and I've been proud to train him, Eamonn, you know.
And especially
best of my ability, anyway. And it's been a lot of fun, you know, real fun.
Well, that's clear to all of us, and yes. Thank you very much, Jimmy, and Lawrence and Jimmy Devaney. Thank you. Now, Janet, in fact, soon after Richard joined that boxing club, I'm frightened of you now that I know you were a sparring partner, this club run by your dad, he was still playing rugby and was undecided about which sport to concentrate on, but you made up his mind for him.
No, actually, he made up his own mind, but as you know, boxing and rugby don't mix, and I said, make up your mind, take one of them, and he picked boxing. So he didn't change his mind. I burnt his rugby boots. I'm sorry, lads. I threw his rugby boots on fire. You didn't change his mind,
just burnt his rugby boots.
Yeah, so I couldn't change.
How did you react to that, Richard?
Hello, Brand, you got me a 5. I'm a bit sick, wasn't I?
But, Janet, I know that you and your family have, in fact, given Richard every ounce of encouragement.
Yeah. I think my father most. He's given him everything. He's sort of stuck by him. A couple of years ago when Richard really was down, I encouraged him all I could from home part of it, but I couldn't go up on Moors at 4:30 in the morning with him. So popped over there, got a push bike, and he used to go up to Moors and drive around up there with him on his runs. And he said that one day, then he said that he'd be champion, not to lose out.
In fact, Richard, there's another member of Janet's boxing-loving family who's always had faith in you as a fighter, even though she's had to follow your career from 3,000 miles away.
And in my book, Rich is a proper champion in more ways than one.
She emigrated to Canada 20 years ago, but Janet's told us just how close you are, so we've flown her from Ontario. She's here, Mrs. Winifred Waite, Auntie Winnie. Now, Winnie, I know that you've a great affection for Richard.
Yes, he's not only a champion boxer, he's a champion man. 2 years ago we stayed with Richard and he made us so welcome. His home was ours. I found he wasn't a champion handyman.
Why was that?
He was doing a job for Janet. He was putting curtains up in the bathroom and he stood on the toilet lid. There was a terrible crash and Richard had gone through.
Thank you, Winifred Waite. Oh, another record, huh? Well, now, Richard, as we've heard, it looked at one time as if your championship hopes were crashing. In 1974, you lost 3 major fights in succession, including a 4th-round knockout by the Spanish champion Jose Ortega. Now, it must have crossed your mind that you might be better off in the audience than in the ring. And in fact, one night last year when you were in the audience at London's Grosvenor House at a boxing function, someone had a word in your ear, George Biddles. Now, that was you.
That's true, Eamonn.
What did you say to him?
Well, they said, a great big guy like you, what are you sitting there for? You should be working, fighting. And why shouldn't you? Because you're big enough. And he said to me, do you know, I can't get any sparring. What are the chances? So I said, you can come at any time. And the following Sunday, he arrived at the gymnasium at Thurmaston Boxing Club in Leicester. And I was so surprised at his ability, his strength, and what he could really do, and the talent that he really has, that when I got home I told the wife, there's something wrong here. If he comes again, I'll have a serious talk to him. And he turned up again the next Sunday, a distance of more than 200 miles. And I said to him, well, a man with what you have got has got to be something wrong. And he said it's been the lack of encouragement. So if he's succeeded, and I think he has, he's done it, of course, himself. But I must have talked him into it.
Well, you've had some famous fighters in your 50 years of boxing, and I'm sure you did. And your sparring partners at George's gym are both professional heavyweights who'll be going to Munich with you for the title fight. Your good pals, Derek Simpkin and Eddie Fenton. But the long hours with Derek and Eddie under the tutelage of George Biddles here start to pay off. In 1975, you win all your fights. The crucial one is on September 30th when you take the British and Commonwealth title from Bunny Johnson. And only 35 days later, successfully defend the title against Danny McAlinden with a 2nd-round knockout. And on April the 6th this year, you collect the European title by beating Bernd August. Now you are one of these rare fighters who, in their career, get a crack at the heavyweight championship of the world. And I don't suppose there's anyone in the British boxing fraternity who doesn't wish you well. To speak for them all, who better than Britain's first light heavyweight champion of the world in more than 25 years, John Conte. Well, John, there's a lot, as you well know, of hard work and determination goes into chance of the world title.
Yes, indeed, Eamonn. And Richard has come through after having his fair share of bad breaks and losing important fights and that. And since joining up with George Biddles, he's come through these last 12 months to a point where now he's going to challenge for the richest prize in sport. I think this alone speaks for the man's sheer determination, character and will to win. And Richard, on behalf of all the boxing fraternity in Britain, I'd like to wish you the best of luck in Munich.
Thanks. Thank you, John Conte. But Richard, that's not quite all. We've a last-minute message for you from someone who, not surprisingly, wants the last word. As you'll discover as we go back to the USA, to Washington, and Muhammed Ali.
Oh, yes, well, just the last few words for you, Richard, baby. I understand somebody told me you're from Yorkshire. I want to make a deal. After I annihilate you, I understand they're famous for that Yorkshire pudding. Get me 3 or 4 big stocks of pudding. That's the deal we're gonna make. And also, I understand that Yorkshire is a kind of small Texas. So you've taken 67 parachute drops. I've just been given the true count, 67 parachute drops. Well, I want you to mark this down now. You have 1 more big drop to come. And I mean a big, hard drop. It's going to be the longest short drop you've ever had. Please don't forget. Please be there. So be seeing you soon, old chap.
Now, Muhammed Ali, for once, hasn't got the last word. Just before we came on the air, Helen, one of your greatest fans in the family, tells me she has a poem. What's the poem, Helen?
Dear Mohammed, just a line to say. Richard's gonna make you earn your pay. You ain't gonna whoop him like you did the rest, because in Europe he's the best. He ain't no beauty, but he sure is tough. This fight in Munich is gonna be rough. So when you go, Ali, there won't be a crash. The world's gonna see you go with a splash.
And just before we finish, well done, Helen, but just before we finish, 3 more people to whom you're undisputed champ, in fact, champion dad of the world. Your children, Richard, Karen, and 3-year-old Gillian. Richard Dunn, this is your life.